Hello and welcome to the Global Business Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Philpott. It's great to be back, and if you haven't joined me before on the Global Business Podcast, I talk to business people, leaders all over the world about what's going on right now within their business in relation to coming out of COVID-19 lockdowns. The goal is that we inspire, motivate and educate our audience on all the different things that are happening, but above all else, we share. Yes, we share so we can all be successful in the future. I've spoken to some great guests so far, and today is no exception. I have another wonderful person lined up to talk to, so why don't we go over right now and introduce her to you all. So it's a very warm welcome to Tamar to the Global Business Podcast. Tamar, ni hao.
Ni hao, Mark. Ni hao, Ma.
What city in the world are you talking to me from today?
I'm talking to you from rainy Shanghai.
Ni jingting hao ma.
Amazing.
I'll stop at that unless we go into free flow Chinese conversation. Yeah, so there we go.
Sure.
So beautiful Shanghai, China. So obviously with your accent, that's not hometown. So where are you from originally?
Yeah, originally I'm from Silicon Valley in California. I'm a California girl.
You're a California girl. So if I actually read this to you, it'd probably resonate with you. Once upon a time, a Californian girl went to China to start the greatest adventure of her life.
That's right. That's my LinkedIn bio.
There you go. I've been reading. So there's a true story. It's not a fairy tale, right? You
That's
are in
right.
China and you are
That's
a California
true.
girl. Yeah.
That's true.
Now, we're going to talk a lot about business today, but before we get on to that, everybody around the world's been affected in a different way by this COVID-19 situation. So I just wanted to check in on you and see how you're coping with it personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing very well. As everyone knows, China was the first to be hit the hardest and all eyes were on us. So I experienced all the lockdown and quarantine and fear before it hit the rest of the world. So after about 2 months of a lockdown, once things started to return to some semblance of normal here, then we started to watch the rest of the world kind of go under. So it's like a bittersweet thing because you're happy on your side that things are okay, things are pretty safe in Shanghai. But then, you worry about your family, your friends in different parts of the world, and you watch them go through their emotional ups and downs. So, going back to business, really, like it's the time to be digital because you also see so many businesses being shut down or facing a lot of uncertainty. So, but on my end, I'm all right. I'm very blessed and lucky to be here.
Yeah, that's good news. How long have you been living in China for?
Almost 4 years now, but my Chinese still sucks.
It's not the easiest language in the world to learn, that's for sure.
No, it's not. You definitely have to practice it a lot, but I'm sure I'll get there. I plan on studying more this year.
Yeah, great. Well, one of the things on this business show that I talk about is, and I guess it's a little bit of a forgotten thing actually, because we're not always, when we're doing our jobs and we're in business, we quite often can be in a foreign country doing that. And you're a classic example of that, where you are away from family and loved ones and you're working in a country where it just so happens that, this is where the COVID-19 started and originated from. So it must be a kind of a new dynamic and a new thing because, you weren't expecting this to obviously to happen while you were, having your work and life experience in China. So was it a big shock in terms of the way that it impacted the business side of your life as well?
Well, I definitely had a lot of fear because everything was so uncertain. I never got put down in quarantine as lots of people here did, but everything was pretty much locked down. So you start to wonder, how's life going to look like? Am I going to be able to make money? Am I going to sign new clients? But actually, because of the lockdown, it gave my business partner and I first of all, time to really internally organize things and hire our value proposition. But then we started taking all these Zoom calls because we realized we were wasting so much time going to in-person meetings. There's definitely a big meet in-person culture here in Shanghai, which can be great, but for business, you can end up losing a lot of time and it's frustrating. So we got in the habit of taking all these Zoom call meetings, even with multinational, multi-billion dollar companies. And ironically, because everyone had time to think, we signed more contracts during this time than we ever thought we would or planned to. So we're just now at a point where we're about to scale and pivot yet again. And it's really been a good time for us to internally organize ourselves, our processes, and our team.
So let's go back and start at the beginning. What business do you run, and what industry is it in?
So I run a digital agency with a business partner, and our elevator pitch is we help businesses in Asia to get leads through LinkedIn. So we specialize in lead generation and inbound marketing through content creation, and we only focus on LinkedIn. And as far as I know, at least in China, we're the only agency that does that. So it's quite a unique positioning.
Where did the idea for the business come from?
Well, my business partner actually had the agency running before I came on, and he was in e commerce doing a lot of things with Shopify. And he knew that I was running a community based off of LinkedIn called LinkedIn Local Shanghai. So it gave him an idea because he's from France and he sells the number one course about LinkedIn for French speakers. And he thought, you know what? There's a huge opportunity in China. He was looking at the figures that in the next year or so, China will become the number one user base of LinkedIn. Currently, it's number three. And he just really saw an opportunity and thought maybe he and I might have a synergy working together, especially involving the community. So we started running workshops together because I knew quite a bit about LinkedIn, but not a whole, I wasn't an expert yet. And then we found that we worked really well together. We built our community together and started pivoting the business model, which was really cool. So now here we are a while later, and that's exactly what we do. We just only provide LinkedIn services.
So what were you doing before you joined forces with your current business partner?
Yeah, before I was in digital publishing, and I've been an educator for on and off for almost 20 years in some capacity. And I was in digital publishing for online courses that taught young professionals in the US soft skills. So for me, it was great because I could embrace the creativity as an educator and really feel like I was contributing to people's skill sets. But I also have a background in publishing, so I was able to utilize my skills as an editor and copywriter, which was super fun. I learned a lot about influencing, especially with language, neuroscience techniques, all kinds of cool things, which I'm so grateful for because now, of course, in the content that I oversee for our business, it's something that I use now with my content team.
Yeah, very handy indeed. Now, a lot of people listening would be interested to know about the transition of working in the United States and then working in China. How did you find that transition for yourself in terms of doing business in China?
You know, I came the safe way. Like every other foreigner, I came initially just teaching because I had my ESL certificate. And it was a safe way because I was actually working with Disney. So being such a large corporation, their onboarding is fantastic. They really hold your hand through the whole process. So it gave me the opportunity to experience China, in my opinion, from more of a safe place where things were being done for me. And then that way, when I transitioned into digital publishing and now to the agency, I took that time to really learn about business. I talked to lots of entrepreneurs. I was learning about the legality of things, how to set up your wholly foreign owned enterprise, as it's called here. So for me, the business transition was probably easier than the actual personal cultural transition where, I mean, still almost every day I am getting more used to things, but you have these WTF moments in China as a foreigner almost every day, and then you just kind of laugh and you embrace it, and you're grateful for your life because it makes you laugh every day. But yeah, the business part
Yeah.
actually was the transition is okay, and I've owned businesses before in the U.S. as well, so I'm used to doing my taxes, filling out paperwork, talking to people who've done these things before. So I'm grateful for those experiences because it helped me a lot.
Yeah, brilliant. A lot of people listening will be excited to hear what life is like as an expat, and having done it myself for many years, it's
Hmm.
a very rewarding process at so many different levels. You grow as a human being, but you also get to see other cultures and experiences that you simply wouldn't have if you stayed in your home country. Yeah, is the
Right.
plan to be there for some time for you?
Yes, I really believe that we are not anywhere near the potential that our agency has. I definitely think this is the place to be for the next few years. And then we'll see, maybe in 3 to 5 years, if we pivot, if we sell the agency, whatever. But both my business partner and I, we just have such a great synergy and such complementary skill sets that we could definitely see us pivoting in a different direction and maybe even to a different country eventually. But I don't know. This is a golden few years of China, and they've made it easier as the years have gone by for foreigners to set up a business.
We hear so much negative through mainstream media about China and all the rest of it, but the reality is, and this is why I love talking to people like you who are on the ground, you're making things happen, you're seeing the potential. And one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast show on business was for people to really understand that there's lots and lots of opportunities at the moment, right now in this current time. And if we just peel back the dark clouds for a second, we can see those. I want to talk about some of those with you today. So you've already mentioned that when COVID-19 came to town, you were, I guess, immediately overnight put in the situation where you had to start contacting people online. Was that a really easy transition for you to make as far as your business goes? And the people that you were dealing with, was it something that became quite natural and easy for them, or was there some coaching involved in that process?
The great thing about my partner is that he is such a process guy. So he actually already had a process in place for we used to have like a booking calendar for people to want to meet with us on the weekends. We took business opportunities and community opportunities and had a coffee with people. But he said, you know what? Let's just switch this calendar to now a Zoom call. And we'll take Zoom calls from 5 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, 30 minutes each time. So the goal was to fill up the calendar. And of course, we started with people in Shanghai. So I think for them, it was just necessary. It wasn't even about an easy or difficult transition. It was that we couldn't go out, we couldn't meet each other, but we still had business to run. So I think we just kind of made do. Now, were we fantastic at video calls? No. There's still people even today who have trouble connecting to the audio sometimes on Zoom, but they figure it out. We did have one particular situation where a client really wanted to see us in person, and by then it was okay, still like precautions in place. So we agreed to do that like as a once preliminary. But for us, I found that it really started to protect our time more. So even, we decided that when we sign a client, we'll only have 3 in-person meetings if requested. So one is to sign the contract, one is a mid-contract meeting, and the other is end of contract, like right before it ends, to review and see if they want to re-sign. And before, I think I would have given too much to clients, which is not good, and it also doesn't, in the end, it doesn't serve them well either. So I think really this opened our eyes and just showed us that business can be done on a video call, and it will be for the foreseeable future, especially for the rest of the world. And now it's really just time to adapt and protect your time. So for me, it was a gift, really.
Yeah, that's brilliant, because you've also got to look at things like from a logistics point of view. Shanghai is such a huge city, and
Right.
it can take you all day to go across town to
Yes,
go to a meeting and come back again, right?
exactly.
Um, so productivity has been a major gain for you guys in terms of just being able to get more done in a day, by the sound of it.
Yes, yes. Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
And again, setting up processes, protecting our time, taking in opportunities. It's been really cool. Like we have our clients book calls with us. We have prospects book calls. We have lots of different, even people who just want like a free 30-minute consultation, which we offered. Like we just send them the link. So for me now, I'm so used to sending them my booking link, and they just book and
Mm.
it's all set.
So in terms of other things that you've had to adapt within the business during this time, have there been other things that have changed? Like, and I'm also interested to know, did you sit down and come up with this new strategy overnight, or did you sit down and take, a few days, a week or so to come up with how you were going to manage the business going forward?
Yeah, great question. I think for us, really, it's been just what's evolving. It's been an evolution and sort of figuring out, okay, let's test this out. And then we test it out, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, or maybe it needs a little bit of refinement. So for us, we really are, as Gary Vaynerchuk would say, we're practitioners. Like, we're not the kind of people to sit down and strategize for a long time. It's more of, okay, this, we're getting this feedback, or you know what, this would be wiser, or you know what, we've been doing this for 3 weeks, it's not producing the results we want, time to pivot. What does that look like? 5-10 minutes, okay, let's get it done. So that's how we've started to evolve in working. I think maybe before, when we first met, my business partner and I, we did strategize a little bit longer, or he would be strategizing and I would put it into place and execute. But now it's getting faster because we know each other well enough. And then another thing is, like, our team really grew during this time, and all of our team from the beginning has worked remotely. And what we had to sort was the internal processes in the organization. And now we use like a private server where everyone's connected. Now we also implemented every Saturday our team has to take an online course that's relevant to their function on the team and what they do. And we do as well. My business partner and I also, like, we have courses we assigned ourselves. And then before everyone ends their day, which is around noon or so, they have to submit a report on what they learned, because we also want them to implement, and we want them to put processes in place the way that we do. So it's not just one or two people doing it. So we really try to empower our team like that. And I've never ran a team like that before, and it works really well. It's really, really, really interesting to see how it's all coming together.
Yeah, it would be. It sounds fascinating. So how many members of the team do you have today?
So all together, including my partner and I, we have 7. We had 9, but we shrunk a little bit more for administrative purposes. And now we have like a really solid core that we want to focus on growing and empowering. And then probably in the next few weeks, as we sign more clients and projects, we'll expand a bit more. But we really wanted to have a solid team, because even in that, I think we grew a little bit too quickly. And that was another thing where we took a step back and said, okay, do we really need all these positions filled? No, not right now. Let's wait and focus more on the core team who's been with us for a while. And it's working really well.
It's an important thing, isn't it, when you're a small business, to be able to be agile and adapt quickly to new changes. And I guess during these times that we're in now, there's no more important time to be having agility as one of your pillars of success in the business. What have been some of the challenges, though, that you have come across and you thought, well, hang on, we didn't plan for that, or we didn't think about that? Had there been anything that's come out of that?
Yeah, I think for a while we had things too segmented. Like I more so had kind of my side of the team, my partner had his side of the team, and it started, especially for me, it started to create some confusion and even frustration because then when you're managing kind of separately, but then also trying to bring the team together and be synergized, it doesn't really work in the long term. For a while, it was okay. But then again, as we grew and took on more projects and clients, it just wasn't feasible anymore. So I think that was like one of the big challenges that we faced. Another one was everything was too separated for, even though things were properly organized for our team as far as their daily tasks, it still was really segmented. We had this program here, this drive folder here, this desktop here, and everything was so just away. And so once we centralized almost everything on our private server, it made the biggest difference because now everyone checks in on one thing. We even have video calls weekly on the one server, and it just really amplified even how we do things and how productive we are.
Really important tip there, I think, in terms of you can have a vision on how you want your business to run, but you've got to be able to execute it.
Yes.
And IT and all those sorts of aspects are critical when it comes to making sure that you can actually deliver on the vision,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Now, what about you as a business leader? How's this period of change changed you as a business leader, and have you been more open to new ideas and trying new things than perhaps what you were pre-COVID-19?
Before that, I actually was becoming more open, only because like meeting and working with my business partner, he's so innovative and he just really has a vision for things, and he's a super executor. Whereas I can tend to be a little bit more reactive and relational and maybe not implement things as quickly. So we're a good balance because since I can be a bit cautious just to envision what the obstacles might be and how we can prevent a catastrophe, he's overly
Hmm.
proactive at times. So it's good because I slow him down, but he speeds me up. So that was already something that was I was developing, but I definitely, especially during the lockdown, and you're home all day long, like you don't have distractions anymore. I really started to learn how to accelerate as someone who executes and someone who also thinks more in processes rather than, okay, let's try it this way. Okay, next time we'll do it a different way. The next time we'll do it another way. I really learned how to become more efficient with how I do things in our business, and that's made a really big difference for me.
So if there's people out there listening today who are wanting to get into a partnership in a business, what would be some of your pieces of advice in terms of making sure that you go into a partnership with your eyes open in the right way?
Ha, great question. Not every partnership is going to work. Sometimes I think it's better just to maybe figure out like how you want that partnership to look. Maybe it's not 50-50. Maybe it's more, okay, you just contribute things to that person's business and you're a consultant, whatever. It really is to make a partnership outstanding is you have to have the proper synergies. You really have to have complementary skill sets. You have to be willing to listen to each other, but also take turns being the leader. It's a business partnership is a lot like a marriage and maybe even more intense because when you have money involved and ideas and you're so passionate about this thing that you're working on together and producing, but you maybe have a different vision, it can get quite emotional. And then also too, like, you have to be thinking, yes, about the present moment and managing your staff and doing the right things for your clients, but you also have to be thinking about the future. So you need someone who can ground themselves in the present, but also be thinking ahead the next 3, 5, maybe even 10 years. And then you have to make sure that you're aligned. So communication is obviously like the biggest part of it. Having those times where you connect and really just say, okay, today we're just going to talk about like what our vision is, what's working, what's not, what do we need to do today in order to still be going 5 years from now. And then another side of it is asking advice from people who do have good business partnerships. So for us, before we really got into this point of scaling, we asked some really wise friends about their business partnerships and even like the legalities and what they have in their partner agreement. Just all kinds of stuff. I think it's really important to seek wisdom from the right people that you trust who are going to give you a different perspective. But it's really a learning process, and it's really like you have to, at the end of the day, you have to trust your partner. And if you can't trust your partner, then you have a big problem.
I like a lot that you've just shared there, because I think in terms of when we think about business partnerships, more times than not, we think about 50-50. And I like the fact that you looked at it a little bit differently there and said, and I guess also, reiterated that we all bring different skill sets potentially into a partnership, and it doesn't mean that things have to be or will be 50-50 in that partnership. So I guess recognizing in that last word you used in terms of trust is absolutely critical, because, you've made mention that it's probably harder than running a marriage is running a business, because you're raising a child together that you didn't actually, necessarily create together in that way. So there's a lot attached to it, isn't it, in terms of all those things you're thinking about. And the more shows that I do on this business podcast, the more I'm realizing from people that are talking like you that this whole aspect of mentorship and advisory from neutral parties is such a critical thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, because, I want to talk to people who have gone or who are where I want to go. I don't want to talk to people who have no clue what they're doing, or they're just getting started, or they've been what they label as a serial entrepreneur with no results. I want to talk to people who have the wisdom. So for me, I also have learned that the last thing I would add to that is be wise in who you share things with, especially about your business. Because if you're talking to people who say that they're like, okay, I'm just going to be really honest now. There are too many business coaches, Mark. Too many business coaches in this world who have not even really truly run a business. They call themselves a coach because they started this coaching business. And for me, that's really dangerous, because when you're trying to give business advice to someone and you haven't gone to where they want to go, or even financially, you haven't achieved what they want to achieve. Like I plan to be a millionaire in the next few years. And if I want to be a millionaire, I need to talk to millionaires, not someone who's a business coach charging $250 an hour. So that's another thing too, like, and that's where you and your partner have to agree. You have to agree that when you're seeking advice, like, you get it from the right people, and everything else you take with a grain of salt and let it go if it doesn't serve you together.
Really, really strong advice there. And, in a nutshell, we're saying, if you have a goal in business, which you should obviously have if you're starting a business, then seek out those people that have already achieved that goal, because they're the ones that will help you get there, not the ones that are dreaming about getting somewhere.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people around the world. It sounds like you two are doing a wonderful job in navigating the difficult waters of COVID-19, but there's a lot of people around the world that aren't so fortunate at this particular point in time. So what tips would you give to people who are, finding it a bit difficult at the moment when it comes to running their business during COVID-19? What are some of the critical success factors that you'd pass on to them?
You know what? I mean, it breaks my heart to say this, but so many people are still clueless about what's to come. I think a lot of people believe that once this pandemic is over, quote unquote, which it's gonna be on for a while. I think they think that everything is gonna go back to normal, and they'll just have to get through this time and get through some cash reserves, but then it's gonna be okay. And the truth is, it's not. The truth is, everything has already shifted and changed, but most people are very ignorant of it. And I can say that because I see what's happening here in China. I see how the economy has recovered and what industries have been hit the hardest. And the ones hit the hardest are those that were ignorant of the new digital renaissance and didn't take advantage of digital marketing. So, those who are
Mm.
going to take advantage of the new era, the new age of digital marketing, those are going to be the winners. The people who are pivoting, shifting, adapting, and realizing that there's never going to be a normal the way that we once knew it, those people will be all right. But unfortunately, those who are really struggling to see what the shift is and who can't adapt and who are thinking in the old ways, their business is going to die, and it's going to really suck. Like it really, even just saying this, because I know it's true, it makes me tear up a bit because I know these people have been working so hard and so long, but they didn't diversify their income. They didn't have multiple revenue streams. They didn't save up a good chunk of cash, so they don't really have cash flow. They've had to lay off employees already. It's just going to get darker before it gets better. So
Mm.
again, those who can pivot and shift. Let me give you a concrete example. When the restaurants all shut down here for about 2 months on the lockdown, or as far as like the serving staff, Alibaba stepped up as a leader of this nation and employed those employees out of work to help sort all the massive like grocery delivery, because we have such a huge delivery culture here in China. I mean, if you run out of toothpaste at midnight, there's someone you can call through an app to go get it for you and bring it to your front door. So that was a massive workforce needed. I know, it's incredible, right? We're very spoiled here. And so they took
Mm.
those servers who were going to lose an income and they employed them to meet the mass demand. I mean, talk about a pivot, talk about adapting. Like, I think that's so incredible. Plus, it provided a need on a massive scale for so many different people, not just the people ordering food, but the people who were restaurant workers. So, businesses that can shift like that, who are thinking of how do I solve a mass problem, especially during this time, those are going to be the winners. But I really believe
Mm.
this pandemic is serving as a big filter, just like the recession of 2008, or even like, the dot-com bust. It's just serving as another filter to see who's going to survive and thrive and see who's meant to not continue in business.
Yeah, great listening to you talking about that, because I'm in total agreement with you. And I think there are so many people with their head in the sand at the moment, and they're not realizing what the reality of the situation is. And we've also got that other situation in many countries around the world where the financial support given by governments, which is soon to run out and stop, means that we're going to hit a rock wall, and that rock wall is going to be for those people that haven't done those things that you've just talked about. Then I wanted to ask you about the progression of China coming out of lockdown and everything. Where would you say things are at today in relation to business getting back to whatever the new normal looks like?
Yeah, so it's about 85 to 90%. But again, lots of food and beverage industries shut down. Obviously, the travel industry is really hit hard, and there's a lot of xenophobia still going on. Um, there's still, especially in second and third tier cities, a lot of people are still scared of foreigners because they think we're the ones carrying the virus now that the rest of the world is impacted. So it's kind of a reverse. Now,
Mm.
it's not brutal here the way it has been in other countries with Chinese people being attacked, which is horrendous. But it does exist.
Mm.
So this year is going to be definitely a very low travel year, at least maybe for foreigners in China. However, lots of people are now used to working from home, or they maybe go into the office like only 2 or 3 times a week. There's still a lot of people stuck outside of China, unfortunately. So I think depending on the political pool that you have, or if you are an executive and China sees you as a foreign executive vital to the restart of the economy, then they're letting people come in on certain private chartered flights. But other than that, like again, I've really seen a very interesting shift in adaptation, which I really commend China for. I mean, they were testing out AI drones during COVID outbreak at its peak to take temperatures of people
Mm.
on the street, or even in like in southern China in the fields, all the little grandma and grandpas are still out, on their little farm, but they needed to stay
Mm.
in. So the drones would talk to them and tell them, you need to go inside, grandma, you need to go inside, grandpa. It's fascinating. It was such an interesting way to test out new technology that China was planning to do anyways. So in one regard, they accelerated that, and I think that's going to be a big part of the economy restarting. And then finally,
Mm.
you just mentioned financial and fiscal. Well, China is developing their own cryptocurrency, and it probably will be released probably this year. And that means that once other governments start to run out of money, or they just have, such a high debt and they keep printing money. Well, what China's doing is they're not going to print more money. They did kind of like social credits to boost the economy, so they gave vouchers. And then with this cryptocurrency, they're going to start basically collecting all the paper money and totally get rid of it, and
Mm.
then turn
Mm.
it into the cryptocurrency. So they're not printing more money. They're not going into like a big national debt. They're just going to replace it. And that's going to be so powerful, because then the valuation, depending on the markets, can really go up.
Yep.
And the Chinese yuan, the RMB, has the potential to become a huge global currency in the next few years. So I think that's really
Mm.
fascinating, and
Mm.
people should be watching for that and learning lessons and getting ready, and instead of criticizing, I think there's a lot of lessons that we can learn from China, and I'm telling you, they're going to be like really leading the world economy even more in the next few months.
Yeah. Yeah. Great stuff. Now, before I let you go today, I wanted to touch on LinkedIn, because I love LinkedIn and I'm finding it to be extraordinarily powerful for my podcast show. So I wanted to talk to you about LinkedIn and some of the things that you love about LinkedIn.
Well, one of the best things about LinkedIn in China is it's the only unblocked Western social media platform. So, again, that's why it makes sense for our agency to specialize in it in Asia, in China. And it really has become, especially for Chinese business people who are bilingual or multilingual, it's their gateway to working with international companies, international professionals. So they're really starting to use it a lot more too, which is exciting. And then on a corporate level here, I will quickly say my partner and I have been building a pretty good relationship with LinkedIn China. They're a lot more open here than the rest of the LinkedIn headquarters. They actually recently asked us to partner with them for a government project, which will be quite interesting. And we're also connected on LinkedIn to the president of LinkedIn China, Dr. Jian Lu. sometimes he'll leave comments on our posts, which is really cool. Like, you know, I just don't see any other executives doing that in other LinkedIn areas. So it's quite unique here. Now we do have restrictions, so we don't have video, we don't have events we can post. I don't think they're going to let us do polls yet unless you have a VPN on. And you can't post jobs in the job feature anymore because there were too many scams. Right. But everything else works just as well. LinkedIn plays really nice over here. And I love it because, like I said, like I'm connected to the president of LinkedIn China, and all I did was almost a year ago, I just sent him a nice note and he responded. So LinkedIn really is the gateway to breaking down all these barriers, especially because it's so professional. You know, people are a lot more open. You have really interesting conversations, and, you know, I generate like most of my income from LinkedIn now. So yeah, those are the biggest things I love about LinkedIn.
There you go, people. So get on LinkedIn if you're not today, and use it, I guess, is the other thing. It's all very well being on these platforms, but unless you're not engaging and participating, right, then you're not going to get the most out of it that you possibly can. Tamar, we've rushed through our time together today. It's been really, really great having you on the show. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. It's been fantastic listening to you giving us all tips and advice from Shanghai in beautiful China.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was really a pleasure to speak with you, and it's an honor to be on your show today.
That was Tamar Hela talking to me from Shanghai City in China today. Some wonderful tips there about how to run a business, a partnership, and some positive growth news in these changing times as well. So I'm sure that you would have got a lot out of listening to Tamar today. If you do like the Global Business Podcast episodes, head on over to our website at www.thebusinesspodcast.com. You'll find all of our previous episodes there. We also have a Facebook page, so join our growing community there. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, reach out to me and I will have a conversation with you about your participation on the show and sharing your business news with people all across the world. There we go. That's it for this particular episode. My name is Mark Philpott. I look forward to being back with you again very shortly with another episode from the Global Business Podcast. Until then, stay safe and stay well.